Are you looking for an experience that will grow your teenagers' faith, increase their leadership skills, and teach them the discernment to engage with the world all around them, all while taking them on the adventure of a lifetime? I mean, who isn't looking for that? If your teenager loves fun, adventure, and wants to grow in their faith and leadership this summer, then send them to Excel's Summer Leadership Camp. Excel's Summer Leadership Camp is a 12-day experience for passionate young leaders looking to discover God's truth, to discern wisely, and live wholeheartedly. Your teenager will embark on a transformative journey in the Blue Ridge Mountains, where they'll build lasting friendships in the context of community, embark on thrilling adventures like camping, rock climbing, whitewater rafting, and they will receive expert training and certifications in categories like CPR and wilderness first aid. Each aspect of the camp is woven together to help them learn to discover truth, to discern wisely, and take godly action in the context of real-life situations. To learn more or begin an application, go to theexcelcamp.org. That's theexcelcamp.org. Hurry, because summer is just around the corner.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Reclamation Podcast, where our goal is to help you reclaim good practices for faith and life. Today's episode 75 of the podcast, and I get to sit down with Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield. She's known as the Dad Whisperer, and today we really dial in to what it means to see the soul of your child, right? To dial into your daughter's heart. Now, I want to be clear, while the primary focus of our dialogue is about dads and daughters, this conversation is for everyone. Right? If you have a kid or a grandkid, you need to listen to this, because she drops some serious truth bombs into how to penetrate what can sometimes be a difficult relationship. I'm so excited for you to listen to this. I think it's going to be very good for so many dads out there. And I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. If you know a dad that this conversation would help, please forward it to them. Let's get the word out and spread some of the incredible work that Michelle is doing throughout all over the U.S. Also, if you're not part of our community yet, do me a favor, text the word reclaim to 66866. Get on our mailing list so that way you're sure never to miss an episode. Also, subscribe, leave a rating or review. We're trying to get to 100 reviews by the end of the year, and your review help gets the word out about what God is doing on this platform. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited today to introduce you to my new friend, Dr. Michelle Watson Canfield. Dr. Michelle, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm stoked. Thanks for having me.
And we've already talked quite a bit before the podcast even started. And so I feel like I've known you forever.
Right.
You've got a new resource out for dads. And one of the things that you're kind of known for is being the Dad Whisperer. And so one of the questions kind of where I wanted to jump off at was, how did you fall in love with wanting to resource dads?
Oh, I love that question. That is not hard for me to answer. Well, the truth is, I'm the oldest of 4 girls, and I've now been in clinical practice here in Portland, Oregon. I have a counseling practice for 25 years, and I've mentored girls since I was 19. I'm 60, so do the math. It's been a while. And really, my heart has been toward daughters, toward young women and teenage girls. And never did I have in my mind or my thought or my heart that I would invest in fathering. It was a decade ago, January of 10, where I was one day just, reading in the Bible in Luke 1, where God said to this guy named Zechariah that his son John, who became John the Baptist, as we all call him, would help turn what? The hearts of fathers to their daughters, not the heads, the hearts. And it was just like this zing. And I felt like I got this whisper from God that said, Michelle, that's what I want you to do. And I was like, what? Fathers were not in my lane or my grid or my focus at all. And literally 2 days later, I was blow drying my hair, honest truth. And I just heard the name, the Abba Project. Abba meaning daddy in Aramaic, and men love a project. So I wrote emails to 11 dads whose daughters were my clients at the time, counseling clients in their teens or 20s, and said, would you want to join me once a month for 6 months, see if there's a change in you, your daughter, or your relationship? And 10 of the 11 dads said, we're in.
Come on. That's awesome.
I know. I've had people say men do not add more to an already full plate. So we went, 6 months and we were so into it. We ended up going a year. And here's the cool thing, Tony, is I had absolutely no curriculum. I had no agenda. I had no curriculum. This was like a step of faith, really, an obedience thing.
Yeah.
But every month I called it downloads. God would give me the download for the next month's topic. So it would be on how do you see her? 1 month was all on eyes and how you see her. 1 month was all on ears and how you hear, and how do you do active listening. And then 1 month was all on mouth and words and what do you speak. And I bought stationery for these guys and I bring it and I'm like, here, you don't have to go to the store. Here's 30 different versions of stationery that you can pick for your daughter. And here's ideas of what you can write in a letter to her, from my planet of Venus to your planet of Mars, right? We're from two different planets. I'm all about equipping dads to succeed in decoding their daughters, in reaching their hearts, and building a bridge ultimately to God as a father. But truly, I believe that our country will be healthier from the ground up if we have healthier women. So I could go on, as you can tell. But
no, I love it. I love it.
Of how I landed here.
And you talk about, so the men are from Mars, women are from Venus things. If you're not familiar with that, that's Dr. John Gray. And you talk about that in your book about understanding the different languages. In your experience, how do you describe the differences between men and women, or maybe even more specifically, dads and daughters?
Mm-hmm. Well, the dads that I've coached for the last, decade, we do 9 months now, by the way, the ABBA project, we do 9 months, once a month. Every month, these guys have homework that I give them, but I write the scripts and I say, here, Dad, here's the topic this month, the theme. Now here's how you put it into action. You've got to engage your daughter in a conversation, which is what led to this new book, Let's Talk, Conversation Starters for Dads and Daughters, because I have had so many men, Tony, tell me, we don't speak the same language. It seems like when I step out, I say it wrong. Then she's mad at me or reactive. And then that shuts me down. And I'm sick of trying because I don't want to keep getting it wrong. And I think that's where I've seen that men are smart. You guys go, okay, I ain't an idiot. I'm making it worse. I'll back off. That's okay. Like, Mom, here you go in. You're a girl. I'm like, no. The research shows that every part of a daughter's life is better when her dad is invested and she feels a connection. So back to this question that you asked me, is differences are that, men go, I don't know why I have to say it different. I don't know why I have to soften my tone. I don't know why this matters. It doesn't matter to my boys. I'm like, I know, but you're going to grow in the process. And one of my favorite comments, Tony, is this dad named Rick once at the end of the ABBA project said, because of what I've learned here, he said, what's happened in me, because he's had a challenging daughter he still actually has a challenging daughter to connect with. I still know him. But he said, I'm a better dad to my sons. I'm a better husband to my wife. And I'm a better manager at work. So when dads learn to slow down and pace with their daughters, they're going to have to slow down, soften the tone, use different kinds of language. I have found that men do better in every area of their life by learning skills that their daughters force them into learning.
So what age does the father-daughter relationship really become at almost, I don't want to say adversarial, right? But when does it become really complicated? Because you and I spoke ahead of time. I have an 8-year-old princess named Shiloh. She runs the world, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Look, I love it. She's she still thinks I hung the moon right now.
Right.
And she crawls into my lap, and I'll be okay with that forever, right? I don't want any of that to change.
Mm-hmm.
I love her dearly. At what age do dads really start having to put in? I'll just be honest. It's not a lot of work right now for me to connect with my daughter.
Yeah, good point.
It's intentional, right? I just have to show up intentionally, and if I show up intentionally, we generally can connect. But it feels like, and what I was reading in your book is that as things progress in age, maybe for both of us even, that it becomes a little harder. When do you see that really become more of a divide?
Well, in, let's say, a 2-parent home, meaning there's not divorce where there's already divided loyalty. That's
a good point. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Development if there's, I would say a basically intact family, I would say it usually hits around 11 or 12. It's kind of that pre-adolescent stage. And what you've got to know, dads, is that her physiology is changing, right? There are hormonal surges through her body that Dobson calls that stage like juvenile puberty. Like this is a stage where her hormones are literally changing in her body, so much so that it affects her moods, her thinking, and her behavior. So it's almost like her body and her brain get hijacked. Because I think too, having been in that stage, if a dad says, "What is wrong with you?" or "What's happened to my little girl or my little princess?" we don't have an answer to that. I mean, we're sitting here going, "I don't know either. I don't know what's wrong with me." And I'm telling you, every daughter has that question inside of her. What is wrong with me? Where did I go? I don't know why I can't just be okay. I mean, I can think of even having a meltdown on a family vacation to Disneyland, and I have to leave the restaurant to go cry in the car because I can't find something on the menu I like. Well, I don't want to ruin the vacation, but I don't know how to get myself together at the same time either. And so, Dad, if you come down on her going, you're ruining the family, you get that, right? Or you're just a drama queen. You're affecting her for the rest of her life because those messages go in forever. And I'm not, asking you as dads to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present. But the more you can soften the things that you say to her through the stage of development, about 12 to 18, she's going to come out the other end. So are you. But you got to be careful that the way you ride the waves with her through those years are filled with grace and softness and patience. And if you need a timeout, Dad, because you're ready to blow, I say do the same thing you tell your 3-year-old. What do you do with your kids, Tony? If they're 3 years old, how long's their timeout?
3 minutes.
Okay, we did not plan this. If they're 10, they get how long?
10 minutes.
Okay, so Dad, if you're 50 years old, you need a 50-minute timeout to calm the midbrain, that area in your brain where your emotions lie, and your frontal lobe where you think and reason goes offline when you flood, right? All of that midbrain emotion comes into the frontal lobe, and you are not thinking very clearly. Prefrontal cortex is in the past, right? Can you hear me?
Listen, I'm wondering if you've been following around my house.
And that's what most daughters say is like, my dad gets mad so easy and I hate that. So I hide out. So, back to this thing about what happens in adolescence is that these daughters tend to shy away from dad because we don't want to be a disappointment to you. We don't want to make you mad. And when we can see that we're making your life more miserable, we're going to hole out in the bedroom a lot longer. And what I've loved in the ABBA project, when these dads have monthly assignments, right? They've got questionnaires, I call them scripts, to lead their daughters into different conversations. I can tell you story after story where it started out maybe with dad doing a 5-minute check-in. This is dad read with his eighth grader, Maggie. Yeah. And they weren't talking, weren't connected, big divide. She's suicidal, cutting, and experimenting with alcohol, breaking dad's heart. So he comes to the group going, I'm the loser dad who can't even connect with his daughter, and she's making poor choices. But dad started somewhere. So dad's listening. I'm saying you got to start where you are. Don't wait till you've got all the resources. All you have to do, which sounds easier said than done, but start spending 5 minutes a day just going in. If she slams the door in your face, write a note and put it under her door and say, just want you to know I'm here when you open the door. Like gentle, soft, consistent pursuit of her heart. She gets to see that she's more than her reaction, that you love her no matter what, and say, Daddy's here when you're ready. Come on out, and start just asking her how her day went. What do you want to tell me? And Maggie and Reed went from 5 minutes to 10 minutes to 20 minutes to a half hour to a lot of days. It was an hour. And Reed said, I don't like being up this late. I get up early, but he said it's worth it because of what's happening in our relationship.
One of the words that came to me as I was looking at a lot of your material is that it's about a relentless pursuit, right? Because I think most daughters don't even know that they want to be pursued, right? I mean, is that they have no concept for the importance of the relationship, right? I mean, I certainly didn't until and honestly, until we started really looking at a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
This feels like it parallels, this parallels, what God wants for us. How do you find the connection between, God being the perfect father and dad's trying to just be a good father? How's that shown up in your research and maybe even in your own life?
Mm-hmm. Well, I first just want to say now that you brought that up, which I love, is when you use the words relentless pursuit.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the truth of God as a father, right? Like we can shove him away and push him away and slam the door in his face. And he doesn't say, okay, 3 strikes, you're out, And I think of you too, being in the military. I mean, even before I answer that question, if you're okay with me just asking you a question, Tony,
Sure.
is how would you define pursuit? Like not even just of your daughter, but just pursuit as a soldier,
Yeah, it's just never accepting defeat. Yeah, like I think of the warrior ethos. I'll never accept defeat. I'll never quit. I'll never leave a fallen comrade.
Wow.
Those are things that are kind of just ingrained in who I am. And I mean, honestly, that's the way I feel about my family too. Like, it's just kind of part of my DNA now.
Yeah. I actually just a couple of weeks ago, I just got married in June for the first time at the age of 60.
I love it.
A long-term friend of mine, I knew his wife, she died last year, and he started the National Center for Fathering. Maybe you know of him, Dr. Ken Canfield, but we're passionate now, especially about this dad-daughter space. But he just had me watch a movie 2 weeks ago. And I say had me, I should say invited me. But I reluctantly said, okay, but it's called We Were Soldiers.
Oh gosh, that's all the feelings, right?
Okay, he's emotional in it. I mean,
look, I can't watch that movie without crying. Right? Mel Gibson, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you start talking about like never leaving a fallen soldier, a comrade, and like you do not give up. We don't accept defeat. I'm saying you men thrive on that concept in certain parts of your life. Maybe with the way you work out, or maybe with the way you work your job. But when it comes to relationships at home, when you don't see the success, it's easier to kind of quit and leave your comrade, AKA your daughter, kind of laying back there. And she needs you. You're the parent. You're the father. It's up to you to turn your heart to her. Mm-hmm. So now that was my really long Venusian way of coming to your question, because the last verse of the Old Testament is really significant because God knew he was signing off for 400 years where he was silent, right? And do you know what the last verse of the whole thing is? I mean, there's 39 books, last sentence, and then he's like, bye-bye. He says, if the hearts of fathers don't turn to their children and children to their fathers, I will come and strike the land with what? A curse. I don't think we have to look very far. I think every dad will go, there does seem to be a relentless pursuit of my daughter's heart away from things of God, or away from purity, or away from being empowered and valued and worthy. And she's giving herself away, or she's lost in social media. I mean, that's one of the biggest areas dads are struggling with, is how do I engage her and pull her away from her screen? Well, you're right. That's going to take a workout. But the more you engage her in things that she's interested in, whether it's painting or art, you're going to have to put money behind it, right? Yeah. If she's into horses, figure out a way that you can earn extra money to pay for things that she's interested in and join her and champion her in that. But I come back to your question about, the heart of God. And I really, truly mean this when I say, I almost could get choked up. Really, if I went here, I could start crying because it's that emotional and deep for me. Is that you as dads have one of the most profound privileges that God as a father could ever give to another person. He's entrusting you to communicate his heart to his kids, which are your kids. I mean, don't you almost want to say, I think you got the wrong guy? Like,
oh man, you're getting me in all the feels right now.
Right? Right? I mean,
right.
Right. When you were in combat or on the field going, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm qualified.
No.
Nor do I. Honestly, Tony, even in my role, I've had some dads straight up to my face. This just happened 2 weeks ago. Go, why are you telling us how to be better fathers? Why do you think you have something? I go, I know, you're right. I would have disqualified myself from this assignment. I'm not going to lie. It's crazy. And yet God wired me where I really don't like I don't like adding to the noise and saying what everybody else is already saying. So I go, I'm like you, dads. I'm going, just step in and step up and do it. And we don't have what it takes. None of us do.
Hmm.
But when we say, God, you are all I need. John 15, right? I'm grafted as a branch into the vine, and apart from you, I can do nothing.
Hmm.
Because if you as a dad are being tapped on the shoulder, drafted, if you will, to keep using military terms, to say, you're up.
Yeah.
You're up. Your number's up. It's up to you to build a bridge to God as a father. You know what that looks like? And this is my definition. I'd love to hear yours after I respond, Tony. But to me, what that means is that God as a father is present. He's patient. He's unconditionally loving, no matter what we do.
Yeah.
He never leaves, never forsakes. He says he tattoos in Isaiah, I think it's 49, our names on his hand. Maybe dads want to justify a tattoo. But really, it's about bringing his heart to his children. It's leading spiritually. And I find a lot of men go, that's not really my strong suit.
Right.
I'm going to turn that over to mama. She's more emotional and verbal and spiritually sensitive. God as a father doesn't turn it over to Jesus and go, here, I'm not as qualified. You go. No, Holy Spirit, you're a lot more compassionate and you're the comforter. I'm going to let you. No, he says, Psalm 91, he puts us under his wings. Or Deuteronomy 33:12 says, the one the Lord loves rests between his shoulders. Like God as a father gives shoulder rides, like he's in it with us. Psalm 103, he gives compassion as a father has compassion on his children. So the father, God as a father, has compassion over you. So if you want to learn how to be a dad that builds a bridge to God as a father, just Google God as a father verses and write that down.
Right.
You'll get your assignment.
No, I love that. I think that'll preach any day of the week.
Come on.
I'm here for it. I am
a preacher's daughter. So I'm like, and I've been to Bible college. So I'm like, I'll preach any day.
And you know what, you should, because that's a message that I think a lot of dads need to hear. I think a lot of us have confused God's compassion with being soft. Right. And I don't, I think one of the things that I hear in what you're saying is that you can be loving and you can be compassionate and you can be caring and you can be present and you can still be a man, right? Like you don't have to meet your daughter where she is does not mean to have to give up who you are.
Exactly.
So I think a lot of what's so helpful about your book is that it's really about bridging the gap. It's almost like God created you to be bilingual,
That's exactly what I say. Is now after 10 years of traveling to Mars, I do really believe I'm bilingual more and more because men have said to me things like, just get to the point already. What to do to fix it. And that's really what I sought to do. In fact, truth be told, for Let's Talk, I had double the volume. I had
really?
In half. Because again, I just didn't know what I wanted to say till I'd said it. So I wrote it all out and then trimmed. So I have 60 scripts for dads to lead their daughters in all kinds of conversations. So there's 5 sections. It's lead her to laugh, lead her to love herself and others, lead her to look deeper at harder subjects, lead her to lament, which means it might be hurts from you, but sometimes it's hurts from guys or girls or loss of someone or a pet or a dream. And that stuff festers inside when we don't attend to our wounds, just like physically. And then the last one is lead her to listen, which flips the script where a dad can hand his daughter the book and she asks him questions where you get to listen, Dad. And she learns to ask you questions because they're written out there about your romantic history or your childhood or things you've learned the hard way and those kinds of things. But my goal in this book is to have a practical action book so that men can do something to make the relationship better, stronger, healthier. And it's not about lecturing. It's about listening. I mean, Ken, my husband said, you really could have titled it, Let's Talk ... and Listen. It's really about dads learning to listen because we on Venus figure things out by talking. So if dad can create a space for her to talk, I'm telling you, we fly.
Well, one of the things that I think you mentioned in the book is she's going to outward you, right? And even at 8, my daughter sometimes she can just go. I mean, it's almost like she can speak as if her lips aren't even attached to her mouth. They just go and go and go. And I'm an extrovert. I'm a talker. I'm a
Right,
preacher. I'm a talker. Like, I love to talk. I'm a verbal processor. And yet sometimes my daughter can be talking and I'll look at my wife and I'll be like, I don't know what she's talking about, And
You want me to give dads? I'm all about practical.
yeah, practically. I got lots of things.
Okay.
I've pulled up all the moments of my life that I want you to fix as a dad.
Okay.
So-
Well, because here's the truth is that I don't really truly believe that dads need another message that says, be a dialed in dad,
right.
invested. Dads are like, yeah, I know. What else you got?
What what does that mean for me on Tuesday?
Right. Bingo. Come on now. So let me give dads a practical way to engage their daughters. And hint, hint, this will work with your sons, your wife, your coworkers that are female, any of us. But really, here's what you do. When you are like a deer in headlights and your daughter has out-talked you and you're literally lost somewhere a couple exits back on the freeway and she's way up ahead and you think, I have no idea what she just said because I'm so overloaded and flooded. Here's a fantastic practical way that you can ask questions, Dad. What you do is you listen to the key word in her sentence.
Okay.
Or the last word. If you literally, she went on and you have no idea what she said, just take the last key word. Let me give you an example. So you pick your daughter up from school. She's 14, freshman in high school. You're the one picking her up that day. She doesn't have her license. And you go, hi, honey, how was your day today? And she says,
oh, it was great. It was awful. So-and-so did something and I'm really struggling in science class.
And you're like, okay, there's one version of what she might say. If that's where she goes, you could say, what happened in science class? In fact, dads take the who, what, when, where, why, how. Remember how we learned that in school, in grade school? And link that with your question. I would encourage you most of the time, stay away from why. A lot of times we get, I don't know. So if you can reframe the question with a what, you're going to get further. Not like, why did you do that versus what were you thinking when you did that? See, it invites a different kind of interaction. But there's really an art form to asking good questions. So you could say, what happened in science class, if that's the last thing? But remember that we as girls are really invested in relationships. So if you ask a people question, you're probably going to get a different kind of answer.
Mm.
And so here's another thing I would say that you have a daughter that's more of an introvert. That might be the extrovert daughter that's yeah. But what if you get one that just doesn't open up and you pick her up and you're like, hi, honey, how was your day? And she says one word. What might she say?
Fine.
Yeah, say that she says fine. And Tony and I did not practice this. This is just our, this is our ad lib in the moment thing. Okay. Here's the truth, dads. You think if your daughter says fine, you go, great.
We don't have to talk about this anymore. That's what I'm thinking.
Exactly. Oh, I'm so glad it wasn't bad.
Wonderful.
So you go home and mom goes, hey, how was her day? Because she's maybe, at soccer practice and you go, oh, it was fine. Here's the truth. That is a non-answer answer on Venus.
Yeah.
That's our throwaway. You guys think if she had more to tell me, she would tell me.
Sure.
We think if you really cared, you would ask me more questions. So, hence the myth. So, Dad, here's the deal. Your daughter says fine. What was the tool in your fathering toolbox I just gave you?
Who, what, where, when?
Yep. How? And last word or keyword. Well, here's where it's easy. She only gave you one word. That was the last word. So
do you just respond with what was fine about it?
Bingo.
Okay.
What was fine about it? She might say then, well, science class was really hard today. Then what do you say?
What made science class so hard?
Bingo. And sometimes dads work way too hard. You're like trying to reinvent some whole other conversation and go, well, then, if that was fine or hard, well, how was lunch? No, you're working way too hard because you're trying to come up with a whole different way to keep the conversation going. If you listen for the keyword or the last word, she will give you the next follow-up question. And it's like, she opens up like a flower. Really awesome. It
I love
really
it.
works. It really works. I
Well,
promise you.
it's just so simple. It's so simple. Okay, so here's something else that I really wanted to ask you about, and it has to do with tone, because I'm a loud, gregarious. I'm a military guy. Like I have two tones, loud and louder.
Okay.
Okay, so I believe that sometimes my daughter at 8 years old will cry when I'm not even mad
Bingo.
because of my tone. And so how should dads, how should I'll just make this about me. Thank you for the free counseling session. How should I switch my tone so that I'm not even like,
Yeah.
I'm not even upset yet. I'm just loud, right? Like
Right.
I tell Shiloh, I promise I will tell you if I'm mad. I'm not mad. I just want the behavior corrected,
Yes.
right? And this is my way. This is the way that I like to communicate when I'm trying to. I'm also a football coach, right? So it's like it's the
Oh,
perfect
yes.
like.
Storm mix for intensity.
I'm an intense guy, right? And so how can dads practically reset themselves from the intensity that they are normally wired to something that is actually effective? I want effectiveness.
Right.
I think you're on mute.
Workday starting to sound the same?
I think you're on mute.
Find something that sounds better for your career on LinkedIn. With LinkedIn Job Collections, you can browse curated collections by relevant industries and benefits, like flex PTO or hybrid workplaces, so you can find the right job for you. Get started at linkedin.com/jobs. Finding where you fit. LinkedIn knows how.
Well, I'll just give you a stat first, but that experts say communication is 7% words, 38% tone of voice,
Okay.
55% body language.
Oh boy.
So the tone of voice piece is a really big part of the whole. When you as a dad assume that your words matter more than your tone or your body language, you're misinformed, because communication is 93% not the words, right? I say nonverbal, but really it's because we can give nonverbal communication, right? Without words. But really, here's what I would say, Dad. Each of your daughters, if you have more than one, I'm one of 4 daughters. None of us, one, come with a playbook. That's why I always say, Dads, I'm going to help you write one. That's why you need to get out your pen, take this book. Let's talk with you. Either bring another book or write in this one what she says. And it becomes like a time capsule. It's your playbook to go back and go, what did she say when I asked her, how do you feel when I raise my tone of voice at you? Like she's going to tell you in a non-stressful time what she needs. Because here's what I was going to say, Tony, is that even if you had 4 daughters, every one of them would respond different. One of them might totally love it when you just get intense. And another one, because that's how it was for my youngest sister, is 14 years younger. I mean, I was kind of like a second mom. And when she was like 1, 2, 3, if my mom looked at her with anger, which my mom used to have a big anger problem, Elizabeth would just melt.
Oh.
She would start crying. And it was with my mom more than my dad. Not that my dad couldn't get angry too, but literally her wiring was different. So, Dad, there's not a 1, 2, 3 solution here that works for all of your daughters, because every one of them can handle a different tone. So the key is meeting that individual daughter where she's at. And I would encourage you, Dad, to adopt something that another dad I've heard of that started this. His daughter was 4 years old when he started this. At the end of every day, when he would tuck her in bed, he would say, has Daddy been sharp with you today? Has Daddy been sharp with you? Which I thought was such a cool way to say it, because that isn't a word I would have probably come up with. So he didn't say harsh or mean or angry. He would use the word sharp. You know why he did it every day? Take a guess. You probably know.
So that he could judge what he was doing one day from the next. He created like a baseline.
Bingo. And I would add another part to that is he didn't want the wounds to linger into the next day. He would make amends. And I think that's a piece I really want to encourage you as dads, is that we can talk about cleaning up the past. Tell me how I hurt you. You know, if you go out on a date, and I've got scripts here on father wounds, let's say, and she's telling you, you know, in 2nd grade, that one time you threw my bike into the dumpster or something, you know, you're like, I didn't even remember that.
Right.
Remember that the one that's been hurt remembers longer than the
Sure.
one that caused the harm. And you might want to justify, it's not really helpful. If you really want to build a bridge to God as a father and build a bridge to her heart, simultaneously, listen without defensiveness. That's that softening the tone. But back to practical ways, Dad, take a breath, diaphragm breath, put your hand on your diaphragm above your stomach.
Right.
Take 4 breaths, do an inhale in 4, exhale is at 6. 2, 3, 4, in, out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in. The more you can get oxygen in first before you respond, breathe before those angry responses, then you don't say something you regret.
Sure.
Pace with her. But again, back to the other practical side of it, not only grounding yourself first, you may need to really go out on the porch and take some deeper breaths and get some fresh air, then come back. I promise the problem can wait. But really, I would, in a non-stressful, non-conflict time, ask each of your daughters, have I been sharp with you today? So you can clean it out, make amends sooner so they don't fester. But you could also ask your daughter, like 0 to 10, how close would you say we are? What could I do to be a better dad to you? Those practical questions, that daughter will tell you what she needs. And then when you look in her eyes, there's another practical thing. When you see your daughter's countenance going down, right? That's Proverbs word is, we read right in Ephesians, don't exasperate your children to anger. That's that intense, exasperated.
Sure.
You forget that when you held her in your arms for the first time, that you literally teared up or cried on the inside saying, I don't ever want to hurt her. I don't ever want to hurt her. You forget that in the middle of a conflict. You may need to print out a picture from when she was first born. Put it somewhere where you see it every day to remind your heart to line up with your mouth. Say, I don't want to break her.
Yeah. Do you, so how does that translate? Yeah, I have this friend who listens to the podcast. Name is Todd. He's got an 8th grader named Addison. And one of the things that we often joke about is the eye roll, right? Yeah. And so when dads are given an effort, and maybe it's not the most well thought out effort. And one of the things I appreciate about your book is that it really takes the thinking out of it. So it's less likely to, for us dads to mess it up. But how should Todd respond when Addison gives him the eye roll? Like, what's the best way to, because that's obviously a wall, right? Like she's not, that's like a metaphorical door slamming or something.
You're
like
right.
That. Yeah. How do we get past the eye roll to something deeper?
Well, first of all, Dad, don't take it personal. Like literally, we don't even go to school to learn how to do the eye roll. And how do we all know how to do it? Like it's just a phase of development. If you make it a bigger thing, it becomes a bigger thing. It's kind of like, if you don't feed it, it doesn't grow. In some ways, I would say, dads, as best you can, I think it's easy for you to interpret that as disrespect, which is the ultimate crossing of the line for most people. You disrespected me. But then have you thought about the fact that sometimes your reaction disrespects her back and you're modeling what disrespect looks like? So I think first of all, dads, just again, breathe, ground yourself and look beyond the eye roll. It's a phase of development. I promise it won't last forever. If you make it less of a big thing, I promise it will become less of a big thing over time as she matures and grows. Another thing you might want to do if you want to lead her to laugh is do it yourself back to her with no lecture. Like make it funny. Be like, and walk away and let her sit in it. Let her calm down her own midbrain. But just, again, if you interpret it as disrespect, you're going to jump on it and say, shut that down. If you realize that it's just her way of expressing the fact that she's frustrated with you and doesn't like your boundaries and thinks you're stupid, she won't think that forever. It's just a phase of development where she's separating and individuating from you. So her peers become her main allies sometimes in the development. And that's why I'm all about in that phase, really from about 13 to 30, going, Dad, she needs you more. She needs more time with you. And the more you spend one-on-one time with her, I would encourage minimum once a month, dad-daughter date, but you can do it more than that. It could even be sitting in her, on the floor in her bedroom. It doesn't have to be going somewhere. But I have a lot of dads that have said, I don't think she's into this. But once he says, where would you like to eat? Let's have that be our place. And there's a rhythm that's established. I have found most daughters, I'd probably say probably about 90%, end up loving it. And then we get into a rhythm of looking forward to that time.
Mm.
And then I have dads say, my daughter, even Opera Project is over, they're now going, we're going to still do that, right? And that's what Dad said. I'm running out of conversation starters because you gave them all to me. And that's where this book came out of. Okay, I'll write more then. So the lead. You know what? This thought just came to my head at the beginning. You had said that I'm the dad whisperer, which, is the name of my podcast and radio program. But I've had some men go, aren't you entitled to thinking you're all that? Well, the truth is I didn't name myself that. Another radio guy said, you know what you could be called?
Oh, I heard. I actually listened to that. I listened to an interview with you and was it Carl?
No. Oh wait. Now that you said that, I'm just having a brain clog. He's out of mood. Oh, Chris Fabry.
Chris Fabry. Yes.
He has 9 kids, but when he said that, it really stuck. And I've had another dad say, Michelle, we don't like women shouting at us. And he goes, I don't know how you do it, but somehow you whisper. And like you, Tony, I'm intense. But I'm really wanting to stand in the background going, Dad, say it like this or ask it like this. I think she's going to respond better. And don't tell her where you got the idea. Like, just you do it and you get full credit.
Right. So here's a question for you. Is it, how critical is it that the daughter loves the activity that you do? Right. So like, here, let me just get super practical.
Okay.
One of the things that Shiloh doesn't like to hike. My daughter doesn't like to hike. My entire family loves to hike. And so I said, she says her legs hurt. And I'm like, Shiloh, you're so strong. Like she can do a back handspring almost. There's no way that your leg hurts from this little 2-mile hike.
Right.
And so we created this thing called Hiking Club where just her and I go out and we hike. And we did it 3 times a week. And if she does it 3 times a week, then she gets to decide where we go for donuts or ice cream or whatever she wants, right? Like,
I love it.
Yeah. So if this, then that thing. Now, but she says she hates it, but I think she actually likes it. And
how can you tell that she actually likes it?
Because she generally smiles when it's over.
Okay.
I mean, she actually, I don't think she likes hiking. She really doesn't like hiking.
Uh-huh.
But it's I record everything on Instagram and I put it in my Instagram stories and she loves that.
Oh, got it. See, so you found a way to bring in something she loves with something she doesn't love because you love it. And I would say at this point, as long as she's going, because it seems like you do have the green light.
Well, I did until there was a bathroom incident where she wouldn't use a porta potty that was not good. You have to go to I don't know if you're on Instagram or not, but it's on my Instagram. Okay, it's on my Instagram highlights. It's called Hiking Club. It got out of control very quickly because the porta potty was bad and then the sun was hot and it was a lot. We had to stop. Yeah, well, we just had to stop for that day. It wasn't going to work.
Well, my dad, he took me hunting when I was 12 and he still tells the story now about how half hour in, we're sitting there and it wasn't on a shooting the deer day. It was on a, staking out the area, kind of seeing.
Sure.
And he said, half hour in, you were done. Like, is this all you do? You sit here and you wait? This is stupid. So I think back now, had he maybe come up with, because my dad is creative, but games to make it more fun, the treats on the end, finding what would interest me. Like I'm an artist. Maybe if he would have brought paper and paints or pens or pencils and had me draw what I saw, that would have been a way to connect me to what he loved from what I loved. Because literally my dad's going on a hunting trip next week. I mean, he still loves it in his 80s. It looks a little different. He doesn't hike as much. He gets in the truck. But Dad, find a way to know what your daughter loves and bring that into what you love. Like, is your daughter, Tony, more right brain, artistic, creative?
She's super artistic, creative, and she's also gifted in math. So I don't quite understand the connection of it. But if we do arts and crafts together or we play dolls, that's generally she creates this thing called baby school where her kids go to
Ah,
school all day. And if I can just be a part of that and if I can just lay on the floor with her while she does it,
cool.
actually.
Have you brought her dolls on the hikes?
No,
So
no,
you
that's a
bring
heck of an
the
idea.
you bring the dolls with you, and if they're in school, those little dolls need to learn how to hike and how to explore
Oh,
the outdoors and learn what plants are. So you're building a bridge from what she loves. And if she's an artist and loves arts and crafts, have you ever brought arts and crafts out on the hike to do something out there, to paint what you see, to draw?
no, that's a heck of an idea. I didn't even think about that. I didn't. Sometimes I think guys' brains are just so compartmentalized. We
Yeah.
never think about the bridge
Uh-huh.
of the two, and that's a definitely a great point. Figure out a way to bring what she loves to
Into
the
what you love, because
right.
I can tell you this in my story and others. I love enjoying what my dad loves. But sometimes it's so not what I love that it's how can you build the bridge between the two is a really, I think, a win-win for dad and daughter, because you love having your daughter
Right.
engaged in something you love, right? There's that heart connection, turning your heart, not just your head, right? Emotional means more, emotionally engaged with emotions themselves, more sensitive, more heartfelt, some of those words, not just data.
Yeah.
You're connecting with what her heart is engaged with, which then is a win for you. Because I always say, even with this book, Let's Talk, is when a daughter's heart is shut, we stop talking. You know that from women in your life. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
you're into that age yet, but when our mouth stops talking, our heart is closed up. We got the drawbridge up. But when we start talking, our heart opens.
Mm,
When our heart is open, a dad's heart is open. It's win-win, right?
right.
Dad, if you can get your daughter talking about what she loves. So when you think about Shiloh, I can only put myself in her shoes at 8 years old. If I could have brought my paints or a drawing pad and could draw what I saw, I would start talking the whole time while I was doing that. Like, it creates an opportunity for more dad daughter bonding. It's all about talking, though, in the end.
I love it. I love it. So I am curious, how does your dad at 80 some years old feel about having the daughter who's the dad whisperer?
Well, he's super duper duper proud of me. Like, he
Right.
really celebrates when this book came out. My mom and my dad took me out for dinner and they brought me
Uh,
balloons, and he's one that, even with my first book, we thought it would be on the choice books rounders at supermarkets, which it didn't end up there. I'm just being faithful with what God's told me to do, whether or not stuff goes. But really, my passion is to equip dads to lead. But he took a book of his
mm.
and made a cover, because we had the artwork, and taped the new cover on the book and put it in the choice books rack. Kind of like this prophetic thing. So anyway, he's super proud of me.
That's so awesome. Do you feel like dads and daughters can engage in this dialogue at any season of life? Because I have an older sister, and I wonder how she would respond with my dad and my dad's, a great guy, obviously, and they've got
Mhm.
a good relationship, but these are the kind of things where it feels like it could always be a little bit better. Is there ever a season where this isn't applicable?
Nope. It might be a season of her life where she can't go there. But I am telling you, even this week, I had a dad tell me that his daughters are 41 and 43.
Hmm.
And he opened up the book and read a paragraph. He said, I didn't do the whole date, but I read a paragraph. And it opened up a conversation where they weighed in on what you said. And I can go on and on with daughters I've known in their 20s, 30s. Him with 40s, me and this was through a lot of my 50s, that my dad and I would go grocery shopping once a week. And then we would go to Costco. I was an expensive date, pizza or salad. And then on the way home, I would say, Dad, tell me one story about your life. Because my dad would
Wow.
go, I don't know what to say. I don't know. So he would have 10 minutes to tell me one story. And then after a couple of years, he goes, I don't have any more stories. I go, well, tell them to me again. I want to hear stories of your life. So I would truly say, from my own life and from those I've known and work with, we're never too old as a daughter to have our dad pursue our heart, to want to spend time with us. And one of the things my dad did when I was, I think, in my early 20s, And again, I'm the oldest of four, so they went all the way down from there, my sisters. But my dad went to a men's conference and they were talking about how to, connect with your kids. And he had this kind of brainstorm where he said, what do girls like? I don't know. How do I connect with girls like perfume. So he started this thing we call it Perfume Day. I'm thinking we've probably done this for about 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Where every Christmas, so usually on the 23rd or 24th, we head to Nordstrom, we do lunch in the cafe. It's changed over the years, but this is kind of in the current rendition. And then we go to the Nordstrom perfume department.
Mm.
It's all decorated for Christmas. My dad sits on one of the stools and literally I put perfume up and down my arm because you have to try it on your body. And we do all kinds of photos. And as you can imagine, all the clerks come up, I wish my dad would do this. And perfume ain't cheap anymore.
Right.
I find me anyone I want. Dads with younger daughters have done, like let's go to Rite Aid and get something cheaper. But it's cool. All year I have that fragrance to remind me that my dad loves me. Every time.
I love that. I
wear
that.
It. And if your daughter isn't into perfume, she might be into books. We've got a big Powell's Books here. I've had dads that will wander around the book aisles for 2 hours and say, I'll buy you 5 books. Like something that she loves. I've had dads do pottery or painting, those painting where you go and they walk you through it, where you have some keepsake afterwards. That's the key I'm trying to make. Key point is, so it's not just an activity, but you have something to show for it. So back to Shiloh drawing a picture on a hike. She then has that afterwards to remember. And I would even say, Tony, let her help you learn how to draw and paint while you're out there.
She's already much better than I am, so that would not be a stretch at all. She's so good.
But I meant, would you be willing to be
of course.
competent as she teaches you, or you are, willing to just make something that doesn't look very good, but she'll love that. She has that as a memento. So can you tell I'm all about giving dads practical ways to engage their daughter's heart?
No, I absolutely love it. So I did want to ask one kind of timely question with COVID happening and people being in quarantine. And one of the things that I'm seeing in ministry right now is that identities feel like they're more fragile than ever before, right? Especially as we rip away coping mechanism from kids like school and social interactions. And what can dads do to help bring a sense of family identity, not just to their daughters, but to their whole family? Like what's our role in that process from your experience?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I actually wrote a blog and did a whole piece on and a radio program on dads helping their kids in quarantine.
Oh, great. We'll link to it in the show notes.
I do really know this is a key time where dads can step up and step in because of all the unsettledness with their kids. There's so much that's not predictable anymore. So I would say, first of all, Dad, a way that you can lead is I would encourage you to have a family dinner one night a week. I think that's a lost art. And then if you wanted to have like 3 questions every time you guys sit down is bring up the coronavirus stuff, the COVID, the restrictions, is let it be a COVID talk. Just how are you doing on a scale of 0 to 10 right now? Because every week, I know here in Oregon, we've got riots, we've got wildfires, we've got all kinds of stuff that's literally changing stuff by the week. So you're bringing up, how are you feeling on a scale of 0 to 10? 10 is great. 0 is really bottom of the barrel. Where would you put your emotional rating scale? We call it a SUD scale here in my field of psychology, of subjective units of distress. Where would you put your SUDS rating? And so I say, are you really sudsy? Are you really not? Like, give a number. Everybody goes around and gives a number. Because sometimes if you have more of a quantified way to represent what you're feeling, it gives you as a dad a kind of little bit of a lay of the land kind of feel of where each child is at, and yourself and anybody else, your wife or whoever. Okay, so start out with a number. What number would you say where are you at emotionally, everybody, this week, 0 to 10? What's hard, about the week? What's great about the week? You can call it what's super about the week, what's pooper about the week. What's your high, what's your low? You can call it whatever you want. But what number represents where you're at? What's a high, what's a low, what's a pooper, scooper, pooper, super day. And I say pooper soup, and super part of your week, or pooper part of your week. If you have kids that think that's so funny, because boys think whoopee cushions right at 8 are the funniest thing, you might want to use that word because it'll stick. If you have older guys, well, that's so immature. Like, you're like, what's a high? What's a low? What's a mountaintop? What's a valley? Whatever
Yeah.
word you want to use. But what is the goal? To talk. That's why the book is called Let's Talk. I actually got this title from a dad who was in my album project. I'm like, here's some I'm shooting for around. He goes, well, why don't you like just call it Let's Talk? And I'm like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. You know, so as a thank you, of course, I gave him some of my advance and said, here, and what do you need on your truck that you haven't bought for yourself? So he went and bought a new bumper, you know, for his big pickup. But anyways, I say all this to say, Dad, that's one way you can lead during quarantine. The other thing I would say, this might not be realistic depending on how many kids you have, but spend one-on-one time.
Yeah.
A half hour at least a week, just with each child. In fact, I heard about, from a dad about a year ago who has 9 children, kind of like Christmas. Every night they put all the kids down to bed and one child gets to stay up for 30 minutes with mom and dad and do anything they want to do in that 30 minutes. So here you're stuck at home. You maybe can't go out. Limited resources, maybe if funds are pulled back due to COVID. But don't you love that? It's in that half hour at home, that child can pick anything with mom or dad, or you could just do it with you as a dad. That child, 1 hour a week, each child gets to pick at home. It could be cooking something in the kitchen, baking something, making a treat for all the family. It's drawing something. It's listening to her music. It's drawing something together, reading a book together, watching a show. I mean, doing things at home, I guarantee at the end of this quarantine time, you will look back and she will look back and say, I think it was one of our richest times of bonding.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love it. It's simple and it just requires just some intentionality. And I think that's really the best gift that you're giving all of us in this writing. Dr. Michelle, I know that my listeners are going to want to connect with you.
Yeah.
What is the best place to find you on the interwebs?
Sure. You can go to drmichellewatson.com. So that's where I have free resources. I've got my, podcast there, The Dad Whisperer. I got a link to my new book. I've written 2 books for dads of daughters. I have a link to Amazon there, but you can buy them anywhere. And if dads buy them, I would love them to leave a review. I need more of those. But really the point is, and I do dad-daughter blogs every other Friday. They can sign up for those. And I'm on, Dr. Michelle Watson on my Facebook page. I've kept my maiden name since this is new to add to it and people know me that way, but I'm on Instagram, on Facebook,
That's wonderful.
Twitter at Michelle. I think Twitter is MWatsonPhD. So different ways to connect with me.
I love it so much. Now, the last question I always love to ask people is an advice question. And this time I'm going to ask you to give yourself some advice.
Okay.
Right. So I want to take you back to, the beginning of the ABBA project, right before you get started on this ministry that's going to change your life forever. And God is downloading these scripts to you. If you could go back and talk to that younger version of yourself, what's the one thing that you would tell yourself as you get ready to embark on this new journey?
You're just springing that on me.
Yeah. I mean, that's what makes it so good.
Right, because I'm the same way. I mean, you never know what's going to come because there's so many different ways to answer that. This is what I thought of immediately when you said it, but it's really a lot like what I'm picturing is like Peter, where Jesus just said, when he stepped out of the boat, Jesus just said, keep your eyes on me, then you won't drown. And I look back at the last decade. I mean, I wouldn't have ever imagined that this journey would have looked like this. Not only investing in dads and speaking at men's conferences, which I love way more than women's, by the way. I kind of don't like, I love being with men who are eager to learn and don't know where to go, ask for directions. And they come up and lots of them are crying, because they are so stuck and heartbroken. But really, I look back at this journey that even led me to the man that I married, for the first time, right? Just a couple months ago. But really, I look at this journey, Tony, and think I would have disqualified myself, gone, I don't think you got the right girl, God. I don't know why. And so I would say to me, don't disqualify yourself. Step out of the boat, which you're doing. Run after Jesus. Just do what he says. Make amends. Say yes. That's what I would say. Say yes. I would say, because I did say yes that day. I'm like, okay. Like I didn't have a conversation with God. I just said, okay, I'll help turn the hearts of fathers. That's what I would say. Say yes to everything that comes to your spirit. Sometimes people say, how do I know that's God's voice and not my own thought? I would say 3 things. 1, it comes fast. Number 2, it's not what I was just thinking. And number 3, it always lines up with the word of God. That's my threefold way of knowing it was God's voice. So that was just the Dad Whisperer. The Abba Project. Bing, that was in. It wasn't what I was just thinking. And I said yes. So dads, when those quick things come, I need to go make amends. Oh, I need to reach out to that daughter. Oh, I think that one maybe needs some one-on-one time. Don't outthink it or overthink it. Just say yes.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time today and
I love
sharing your heart.
You.
And
Anytime.
It was so good. So thank you so much.
Yay. Oh, my joy. Thanks for having me.
What an incredible and rich conversation with Michelle. I'm so thankful for her. And I love the way that she talked about the idea of tone in your relationship. I love the way that she broke down kind of how, as guys, we oftentimes don't know what to do when our daughters are using all the words. And truthfully, it's all of our kids. I just think that when we can dial in to the heartbeat of our family, not only are we going to be better at home, but we'll be better everywhere else. Such an important conversation for so many of us. As always, the best compliment you can give us is to leave a rating, review, or perhaps share this episode with a friend or maybe they just need a tune-up or they're looking for a little help. We all know that parenting is a full-time, full-contact sport, and we all need help. So thank you for taking the time to listen today. Thank you for subscribing. And if you've already left a review, thank you, thank you, thank you. I read every single one of them. They mean so much to me. I appreciate you, and I look forward to connecting with you real soon.